Good afternoon and welcome back to BNC Live. I'm Tishani Whitlow. We begin with new developments just in from North Carolina. BNC has obtained the autopsy report of Andrew Brown Jr. It reveals he was shot 5 times, including once in the back of the head by deputies. Now, Brown is the 42-year-old black man. He was shot and killed by sheriff deputies last week in Elizabeth City. Body cam footage has not been publicly released at this time, but family members were allowed to view a short 20-second clip yesterday. They described the killing as an execution. Take a listen to what a family attorney had to say earlier today during a heated news conference.
We demand justice from this district attorney. We demand justice not for anybody standing up here, but we demand justice for Andrew Brown and his family. Amen. Andrew Brown and his children. So you don't have to care or like Benjamin Crump. You don't have to like Bakari Sellers. You don't have to like Harry Daniels. You don't have to be a Democrat or a Republican to feel like injustice was done.
And speaking of that injustice, to dive deeper into policing in America, joining me now is civil rights attorney, better yet, James Cook. Welcome back to BNC, James. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Andrew Brown Jr., he was killed less than 24 hours after former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder in the death of George Floyd. Now, every week, better yet, every other day, it seems there's another black man being killed in this country. Why do you think, as a civil rights attorney, that this is continuing to happen?
Here's the thing: is I really think that you, first of all, when you're watching the Andrew Brown hearing, I always think hearing, but when you're watching that press conference and you hear the people in the background, people are expressing their anger, asking that same question: why do we think that this is hearing? And this is because Black people are not being afforded the same constitutional rights as their white counterparts. Okay, you hear the conservatives. I had a chance to watch some of the commentary on some of the conservative news stations after the hearing, or after the verdict was rendered, and they're saying things like, "Oh, this was a miscarriage of justice. Oh, this is unconstitutional. What happened to Derek Chauvin?" But when you look at the basics of the Constitution, which is the frustration that these people are expressing in North Carolina and they're expressing in my hometown of Minnesota, the basis of the Constitution, the preamble says that, the Constitution, the mission of the Constitution is to create a more perfect union by providing for the common defense and promote the general welfare. And what we're saying is, when you kill Black people that are unarmed, you are not creating a more perfect union. You're not doing something to provide for the common defense or the general welfare. All right. It also invokes the 14th Amendment, which is what the attorneys kept saying during the press conference. And what's happening is, anytime you shoot someone unarmed, Black people, like we're saying, they are denied their 14th Amendment due process rights. And specifically what we're talking about is the right to a notice in the hearing before you are deprived of your right to life and liberty. So when you are shot, when you are unarmed, because the cop freaks out or whatever happens, you are being denied the right to a notice in a hearing. When Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck, he denied George Floyd the right to due process. Same thing happened to Dante Wright. Same thing happened to Andre Brown. And that is what the pain that's being expressed. And if you allow me just one more point, one thing that I think that we have to also point out is that these shootings also invoke the 13th Amendment, right? And the 13th Amendment was, as we know, to abolish involuntary servitude. But it was also, you got to take it one step further. It was also to eradicate the badges and incidents of slavery. And every time a Black person is shot, when they're unarmed, that is a badge and an incidence of slavery. George Floyd was a badge and incidence of slavery. Andrew Brown, shot in the back of the head, that is a badge and an incidence of slavery. Because, policing in America, as Michelle Alexander so articulated in her book, The New Jim Crow, policing in America was used to, more or less quell slave uprisings and keep Black people in their place.
You mentioned all these constitutional rights that are continuously being violated, but here we are again in this week. We have a few seconds left. I just want to ask you one more question. We spoke of the Derek Chauvin trial. You were actually friends with Donald Williams, a key witness in that trial who witnessed firsthand exactly what happened to George Floyd. He made quite an impact during that trial, better yet. Why do you think his testimony was so important?
Because, again, the reason why I know Donald Williams is because we train at the same gym that he mentioned during his testimony. We're both MMA fighters. And so this is something that we practice pretty much all of our lives and most of my adult life. Same with him. He knows the difference between an air choke and a blood choke. And that's what he was trying to tell the officer. And I think that his testimony carried so much weight because he came off as knowledgeable. The guy has actual knowledge. When you compete and you practice getting choked out and it actually happens in competition, you actually get the tap, like he said on the stand. But this was not a situation. George Floyd didn't get the tap.
Well, he said, I can't breathe over 2 dozen
times. He can't breathe.
Yeah, that was a tap.
So he basically, that was basically a tap, and that is. But the point is that in competition, you got referees. It's regulated.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, civil rights. I'm sorry,
no
Attorney
problem.
Cook. We actually have to wrap. But Civil Rights Attorney James Cook, we thank you for joining us here on BNC, and we look forward to welcoming you back, sir. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
And at this current time, we're waiting on the president. He's supposed to hold a press conference. It was actually supposed to happen about 10 minutes ago, so we're waiting on that to take place. As soon as it does, we'll bring it to you live here on BNC. We'll be right back with more news after this short break.